Hey guys, hope you're doing well. And today I want to talk to you about throwing a crankbait and what line I use and all that. Because I got this question the other day. A guy on Facebook sent me a message, was asking for crankbaits, what sort of line you use. And he was asking the difference between using braid to a fluorocarbon leader, or just using straight fluorocarbon, mono, whatever. So after responding to him, giving him a little bit of information, it made me really think about it a little bit more. So I wanted to share this with everybody. So depending on the situation, there's different size lines. Me personally, I'm a fluorocarbon guy. I like throwing it on that because it's got less stretch than mono does, so that way you bury the hook in them a little bit better. But it also has the strength and the thinner line diameter, which is good if you're trying to get that bait down. So we're gonna go through a couple scenarios here in a little bit to tell you when I would use what line size and everything like that. But the reason I would not use braid, that's the big, I would say I would never use braid on it, because there's zero stretch in it. That line, when you have those fish come up and eat it, you set that hook on them, you're gonna pull that bait right out of their mouth. Those treble hooks there won't have as much of a chance of catching them and getting them hooked up. And even when you do get them hooked up, you know how those fish like to come up and wallow, shake their head, and it'll end up just tearing that hook right out of their face. So never braid. The braid to fluorocarbon, that's an interesting thought. I guess you have a little bit of stretch, depends on how long of a leader you go to, but then there's just one more knot in there to break. Not something I would really strongly consider. That's why I'm gonna be going with fluorocarbon. I use Seagar. This is InvisX. That's my favorite to crank with. Depending on the depth you're trying to get, if you want that bait to get a little down a little bit deeper, I would throw it on usually 10-pound line or 12. 12 is normally my go-to all-around line, but there's other situations, like say this MR6, I'm trying to get it down to that 6, maybe even 7 foot, depending on the rod you use. You can really bomb that cast way far out there, and then that line with the diameter of it, it lets it get deep. But so you're fishing an area and it's actually like 4 foot. Well, then you can bump your line size up to 15, maybe even 17. Get that bait to go down there, because of that heavier line diameter, it's a little bit thicker. It's not gonna let that bait run down quite as deep. So that's where you gotta play with it a little bit. It lets you be a little more precise with your baits. Once you dial in that depth range you need to be in, it really helps generate those bites. It helps you a lot. The next bait, so that's like the MR6, that SB57 by Bill Lewis, this is like the best bait I've ever used throwing around laydowns. The wood, it crawls right through with that circuit board lip it's got on there. And that's one of those situations where I probably typically wouldn't throw it on 12. I would bump that line size up. I'd go into that 15, even 17-pound range, because this bait doesn't dive nearly as deep as that MR6. You're gonna get probably 2 to 5 foot out of it. And a lot of times those laydowns, they're gonna be even shallower. They're gonna be in that 2-3 foot range. So that's where I want that 15, 17, when we're really gonna be able to get those fish, hook them up and get them out away from that cover quick enough. But still at the same time, when I hook them, you're not gonna rip their mouth open because of the lack of stretch from the fluorocarbon. It's got just a hair of it in there. The other way you can adjust this is to take your rod. So favorite rods, I use 2 different ones depending on the situation. There's the 701, it's a phantom cranking fat glass. So it's a medium heavy, but it's a glass rod. So it's got a lot of parabolic bend in it, bends throughout the middle of it. If you want to check that out, favoriterods.com, you can go see it there. If you use the code GB20, it'll save you 20% off their website too. But that's a one that if I'm throwing just like kind of out off the bank more so, I really like that rod because it loads up and lets those fish really get that bait down deeper in their mouth. That's when I'm gonna throw it on this, with these triple grips that come with Bill Lewis. A lot of times, because that's when those fish get that bait deep. But it's being glass, it's a little bit softer. It's hard to make those super accurate casts with it. So if that's the case, if I'm trying to put this, say, right down the lay down, like you gotta go under a limb and over to the other side, you gotta have it be really precise. That situation, I'm gonna adjust and I'm gonna go to the 701 Rush. It's a medium heavy, but it's a pretty soft medium heavy rod that is really good for throwing crankbaits. I like throwing that MR6 a lot on it. The SB57's good. And even if I'm ripping in a trap out of grass, that's usually my go-to. I'll throw that guy on it. It depends on how thick it is, but so going back to the rattle trap, if I'm fishing thick hydrilla down in Florida, down south, it's really in that 3 to 7 foot range. That's where I'm going 15 most of the time, just because I don't let that bait get down deep enough, but it's got enough diameter that when I rip it, I'm not gonna have to worry about having a little nick in there and breaking a line or anything like that. I'll go 17 if it's in a little bit shallower, again, to keep this bait running a little bit higher, especially these guys, because a lot of times you're throwing them out there, throwing it, you hit that grass, you rip it up and you yo-yo and it falls back down, you rip it back up and yo-yo's back down. It's a really good situation to do that. And this guy here, that's the Bill Lewis, that's the Echo 175, and that's another one. It's got the same rattles, you can hear it, as the Bill Lewis rattle trap does. So when you're reeling that across the hydrilla or grass, it comes through it really well that way, and has this kind of same reaction you get from these little BBs in that rattle trap, just in a crankbait version, so it's just wobbling side to side with that noise all coming around through it. So that's a little bit about the line sizes I would like to use, when I would like to use them, and kind of some different situations. So if you have any other questions about this, put them in the comments below. Hit me up on Facebook or Instagram. Send me a message. I'll try to respond to you. Or like this guy did, he sent these questions over, and now we're shooting a video on it. So it's always a good way to come up with new content for me and kind of help you guys out there in the future. So if you have any questions, let me know. And it was great talking to you today. If you do me a huge favor, if you don't already, please subscribe.